The culprit is Dad. As I was preparing to leave the hospital, I stopped what I was doing and listened intently to Arthur's words. What? I couldn't hide my confusion at the outrageous thing Arthur had said. What on earth did he mean? That the person who hit me was Harry. I recalled my recent interactions with Harry. But I couldn't think of any behavior that might suggest he was the culprit. Mom, you have to believe me. Dad is dangerous. Arthur was desperately pleading over the phone. Should I believe my son, or should I believe my husband? I was faced with the biggest choice of my life. My name is Miranda Bloom. I'm 35 and usually juggle part-time work and home-based jobs to make ends meet. My husband, Harry, works at a printing company, but unfortunately, the pay isn't very high due to the nature of the industry. There are few promotions, so I also work within the tax deduction limit. I don't mind working, so it's not that I'm dissatisfied, but I would be happy if my salary were a little higher. I married Harry 12 years ago when I was 23. Back then, I had just graduated from high school and was working as a receptionist at a local clinic when Harry, who happened to come in for an appointment, asked me out. At first, I hesitated to accept his offer because he was a patient. But I was drawn to his smart approach and kind demeanor during our dates, and before I knew it, I had fallen for him. It's impossible not to be swayed by the approach of an older man when you're in your early 20s. After much deliberation, I prioritized my feelings. My relationship with Harry progressed smoothly, and he proposed to me on my 22nd birthday. He took me to an upscale restaurant I usually wouldn't go to, so I sensed something was up, but we were both still young, so Harry's decision surprised me. However, as our relationship progressed, I grew to love Harry more and more, so I readily accepted and decided to get married. Things moved quickly from there. We registered our marriage, had a ceremony, and then Arthur was born. Harry doted on the newborn Arthur and tried hard to make time for family despite his busy work schedule. Postpartum, I was emotionally unstable, but Harry's kindness saved me many times. That happy everyday life now feels like a distant memory. 12 years have passed since then, and Arthur is now in 6th grade. Next year, he'll be in middle school. Seeing how smart and kind he is for a 6th grader, he might have taken after Harry. Arthur is increasingly resembling Harry, but lately, he's been complaining like it's his catchphrase that he's sad because he can't spend much time with Harry. That's right. Since Arthur was in the 4th grade, Harry has significantly reduced his time with the family. Even now, 2 years later, he heads off to work on weekends, muttering, I'm so busy. At first, I would say, that's tough, showing sympathy, but as the weekend work and overtime increased, my questions turned into why? Hey, next Saturday is Arthur's field day. You're coming with us, right? One Sunday, with Arthur's field day just around the corner, I asked Harry, who was lounging in the living room. Field day? Sorry, but I've got work that day. What? Working on the weekend again? Can't you take a day off for your child's important event? If I could take a day off that easily, I wouldn't be working on the weekend, would I? You should be able to figure that out. Maybe, but... Harry seemed stressed, as even his back showed his irritation. He usually speaks calmly, but his tone was much harsher than usual. In such cases, he's usually stressed from work. But imagining Arthur looking sad because his father won't be at the field day made me restless. Please, just take the next weekend off. Arthur is really looking forward to it. There's a parent-child race, and he's excited to run it with you. Is it really that hard? It took courage to plead with Harry, who was visibly upset. But for Arthur's sake, I mustered my words. Harry listened to my plea while scratching his back, looking annoyed. All right. I'll talk to my boss once. But I can't promise anything. Thank you. Whether it was my desperate plea or not, Harry sighed and agreed to try to get the day off. While Harry was in the bathroom, I rushed to Arthur's room to share the good news. Dad might be able to come to your field day. Really? Yay! Arthur was thrilled, childishly excited about practicing for the parent-child race. That day, Harry unexpectedly joined in on Arthur's enthusiasm, and they went running together by the riverbank nearby. Well, it turns out Harry is really thinking about Arthur after all. Relieved by Harry's actions, I was able to sleep soundly that night. On the coming Saturday morning, as I was preparing lunch for the three of us, Harry, Arthur, and myself, to take to school, Harry emerged from the bedroom and, "I've got to go to work today after all." He said that.
What? You didn't mention that at all yesterday.
I was working late yesterday, tired, and I forgot to tell you. Indeed, Harry had come home around the time the date changed the night before. Arthur was already asleep, breathing softly. In the evening, he was looking forward to the next day's field day, reminding me, "Don't forget the camera." I had said to Harry, "It's tough with all the overtime," but then I smelled alcohol on him and wondered if it was just my imagination. According to what he said yesterday, he had stayed at work until the last minute and almost missed the last train home.
That's terrible. Arthur was really looking forward to it.
There's nothing I can do about it. It's not like I go to work because I want to. I'm doing it to support our family.
I understand, but your boss could be a little more understanding. It wouldn't hurt to let you off for your child's event.
I couldn't help but feel resentful towards Harry's boss, who didn't allow him to take the day off. However, I knew it was misplaced anger. Harry's boss probably isn't making him work on weekends for fun either. That's the situation, so I'm heading to work. Sorry, but could you apologize to Arthur for me? Okay. I could easily imagine Arthur's sad face when I tell him Harry won't be coming, and it made me feel gloomy. But watching Harry put on his shirt and tie, I was reminded that reality waits for no one. I reduced the packed lunches to 2, setting aside the extra portion for Arthur's breakfast.
Try to come back as early as you can. The field day goes on until the evening.
Yeah. With a curt reply, Harry left for work. Was it my imagination, or did his back seem somewhat triumphant as he left? In the end, Harry didn't show up at the field day. Arthur was incredibly disappointed, but he perked up a bit after winning first place in the parent-child race with his teacher. I cheered my heart out and captured my son's brave moment on camera. When Arthur, who had come in first, said, "I'll tell Dad when we get home," he was jumping for joy. But I really wanted to be number 1 with Dad. We practiced a lot.
Yeah. It's a shame about today, but let's go out and have fun together again. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
In a good way, Arthur is simple, so he eventually smiled at my suggestion, and I sighed with relief. Still, when is Harry coming home? That evening, as dinner time approached and Harry hadn't returned, I was getting anxious. Arthur, eager to share his day's achievements, was eagerly awaiting Harry's return. But by 8 p.m., with no sign of Harry, Arthur and I started our dinner.
Dad's late, huh? I wonder if work is really tough.
Yeah. I think he'll be back soon. I had no real assurance, but I said that to soothe Arthur's feelings. Being quite mature for his age, Arthur seemed to understand my concern.
I'm home.
Eventually, about an hour later, Harry returned home. Just then, Arthur was in the bath. "Welcome back, you were gone for quite a while." "Yeah, there was more to do than I thought." After taking Harry's bag and jacket, I noticed he sat down at the dinner table. I thought about sending the jacket for dry cleaning and found a receipt in the pocket.
This is dated today.
The receipt was from a bar near Harry's office. Does this mean he was at the bar until just now? I thought it might be a work-related outing, but seeing Harry silently eating, he felt somewhat like a stranger to me. On the following Sunday, Harry unusually had the day off. While I was thinking about where to go, Harry asked, "Are we going somewhere today?" "I'm just thinking about it." "Oh, why don't we go look at violins that Arthur has been wanting?" "Violins?" "Yes, he recently mentioned wanting to play the violin. So I'm picking up extra shifts, but there's a music store in the next town." "Is that so? Then, maybe I'll come along?" "Really, that's okay?" "Yeah, I want to go out as a family for a change." Harry was unusually keen on going out. Considering last week's field day, maybe he was trying to make up for it. There might still be a desire in Harry to cherish the time with his family.
Thank you. But if we're all going, maybe we should take the car?
We usually park our car in a monthly parking lot about a 5-minute walk from our home. When I go out alone, I find it bothersome to fetch the car, so I usually walk. But I suggested it since we were going out together.
Well, how about we walk? Walk? That's fine, but it's a bit far. That's okay. I've been putting on some weight recently, so I want to lose some. Okay.
At the time, I just thought it was unusual, but I had no idea that what would happen next would be so serious. Harry's actions that day would later lead to an unbelievable event. I called out to Arthur, and the three of us headed to the music store in the neighboring town. Though it's the next town over, it took about 30 minutes on foot. As we walked, the area became more rural than our own town, and gradually, there were fewer people around.
It's quite deserted here, isn't it? Yes, it is. It's even a bit scary at night. Do you go to the music store often? I've been going there sometimes recently. I want to buy Arthur a violin as soon as possible. A violin?
Harry was unusually talkative that day. Arthur was happy just to be going to see violins. Later, Harry seemed to be deep in thought, walking silently with a serious expression. When we reached the music store, he watched us from a distance as we looked at the violins, without saying much. After visiting the music store, I decided to increase my part-time hours. Violins are quite expensive, so I need to work hard. The goal was to buy it for Arthur's birthday. We're not a wealthy family, so Arthur has had to make do with less. Next year, he'll be starting middle school, so I thought it'd be a good time to celebrate by getting him something he really wants. Harry's been busier than ever with work, and since we're both short on time, our conversations have dwindled. Arthur, noticing our strained relationship, would sometimes ask, "Dad seems really busy, huh? Are you okay, Mom?" Each time, all I could do was smile and reassure him, "I'm fine." Life went on like this, and finally, I had saved enough to buy the violin. It was a Saturday, but Harry was at work, as usual, going in on his day off, and Arthur was out at a friend's house. I walked to the next town over, just like last time. Maybe because the season was getting warmer, the already quiet path seemed even more deserted. As I was about to cross the final bridge, I felt a dull thud, and my body was thrown into the air. I had no time to think about what was happening. The edge of my fading vision caught a glimpse of a black car, but I don't remember anything after that. When I came to, I was in a hospital bed. Waking up, my body screamed in pain, and I couldn't possibly sit up. A nurse rushed over and explained the situation. Apparently, I had been hit by a car while crossing the bridge. A passerby had come across me afterwards and called an ambulance in a panic. The car that hit me had fled the scene and hadn't been found yet. It's a rural area with no security cameras around, so there's no footage capturing the moment. The nurse told me it was a miracle I had sustained minimal head injuries. But both of my legs were broken and I would need to stay in the hospital for a while. Still, I was lucky to be alive. The whole situation felt surreal, as if it was happening to someone else. It was that unrealistic. After a while, Arthur and Harry came to my hospital room.
Mom!
Arthur ran to me first, burying his face in my chest. I stroked his head and gently comforted him, "I'm sorry, dear." He must have been so worried. Even though he's usually so composed, Arthur was sobbing loudly. "Miranda, I'm so glad you're okay. I was shocked to hear about the accident. They said the car didn't even brake."
Brake, yes, that's right.
Indeed, I didn't hear any sound of brakes at the moment of the accident, just as Harry said. It could be either that the driver intentionally hit me or didn't notice me until the very last moment. But I wondered how Harry knew that. I considered there were no records of the accident scene. Well, maybe the police deduced it from the tire marks or something.
Anyway, I'm just glad you're safe. I'll go get some water.
When Harry left the room, it was just Arthur and me. Arthur kept glancing towards the door Harry exited through, looking like he wanted to say something. But he remained silent. Curious, I asked,
Is something wrong?
"No, it's nothing." He didn't answer my question, just looked down, probably still shaken up by my accident. At that time, I convinced myself that it was understandable. Later, we made some small talk until Harry and Arthur left. Arthur looked back at me reluctantly as they were leaving, but Harry pulled him along out of the room. It might be lonely for a while with just the two of them at home, but I hoped this incident would make Harry pay more attention to Arthur. After that, I focused on resting to heal my injuries as quickly as possible. When I started to feel a bit better, I began rehabilitation, and within a few weeks, I was able to walk with crutches. The nurses praised me, saying, "You're recovering quickly. You're doing great." My hospital room was visited by Arthur, Harry, my parents, and my in-laws, who all brought gifts. While I was grateful, I just wanted to go home. Several weeks later, the day of my discharge was finally decided. On the morning of my discharge day, as I was packing my belongings, my phone rang. It was Arthur calling from his mobile. I gave him the phone, which only allows calls and texts. He used it to contact me.
Hello?
Mom?
Arthur, what's up?
I couldn't help but smile, thinking he must be too excited about my discharge today to wait. Arthur remained silent for a while after my question, but finally, I heard him take a breath over the phone. "The culprit is Dad."
What?
I couldn't hide my confusion at the shocking statement from Arthur. What does he mean? The culprit, as in the person who hit me? That Harry could be the one? I recalled my recent interactions with Harry. But I couldn't find any behavior that suggested he might be the culprit. The only thing that comes to mind is the absence of brake sounds. But that could easily be information from the police, not necessarily suspicious on its own.
Mom, you have to believe me. Dad is dangerous.
Arthur pleaded desperately over the phone. His voice was so earnest that I was compelled to think. It was hard to imagine gentle Arthur making up such a horrible joke for no reason. I urged him to continue. "Actually, on the day of your accident, I overheard Dad talking on the phone with someone."
Who with? I don't know. But he said it was a failure and she was lucky with where she got hit. Unlucky for us, and I got chills thinking it might be about you. Is that true? Yeah. And a week before, I saw Dad getting into a black car at the parking lot on my way to school. Our car is supposed to be white, so I wondered why he was in a black car. When I looked closer, the front corner was dented.
I was speechless at the words Arthur continued to reveal.
What do you mean?
Our car is indeed white. Could the black car be one from Harry's company? But it's hard to believe Harry would be assigned a company car since he's not a salesman.
I don't know, but I'm sure Dad is up to something bad. I even took a photo as proof. I'll send it to you now.
I received an email from Arthur with the photo attached. Reluctantly, I looked at the photo. Indeed, there was Harry standing next to a dented black car. A chill ran down my spine. If what Arthur and I suspect is true, then he is currently living with a very dangerous person. Although I'm being discharged and going home today, I've suddenly become very worried about Arthur's safety.
Is your dad at home today? No, he seems to have gone out this morning. Is that so?
Today is Saturday. It's not unusual for him to be off work and not at home. But it's strange that he left without telling Arthur anything.
Anyway, go to your grandma's house today, okay? Okay.
My parents' house is farther away than my in-laws, so I told Arthur to go to my in-laws and hung up the phone. Then I called my mother-in-law. I briefly explained the situation and asked if they could take care of Arthur, to which she kindly agreed, sensing something was off. 30 minutes later, I finished preparing for discharge. As I was about to leave the hospital room, putting on my shoes and reaching for the door, it opened from the outside.
You!
To my surprise, it was Harry. The conversation with Arthur flashed back in my mind. The culprit is Dad. Dad is dangerous. Feeling threatened, I tensed up.
What are you doing here? What do you mean? Today is your discharge day. I came to pick you up. Congratulations on being discharged.
Harry was smiling kindly, but his eyes weren't. I could feel my heart pounding.
Congratulations? That sounds insincere. What?
Harry's expression clouded over. Though he usually plays the kind husband, now I feared a terrifying demon might be lurking beneath that facade. I can no longer entertain Harry's charade. With resolve, I confronted Harry with what Arthur had told me.
Did you try to run me over? What are you talking about? The person who hit you is still on the run. So, you're saying that person on the run is you? Arthur told me. There was a black car parked near the elementary school with a dent in front. Our car was white, wasn't it? When did you switch cars? Normally, you would discuss such a thing with me, right? It can't possibly be a company car. Well, I should be able to choose the car I like, right? You hardly use it anyway. Besides, who do you think is paying the loan with the money they earn? Oh, I'm contributing to the loan with my part-time job, even if it's less than you. Plus, I take care of the house. Or what? Are you saying you'll take over the household chores? This is irrelevant right now.
Really? Then who is this woman in the photo? I thrust the photo Arthur had sent me earlier at Harry. In that photo, Harry was getting into the black car with a young woman. As I pressed him, Harry momentarily stepped back but then let out a chilling laugh. I knew he had finally revealed himself. If you know that much, I won't deny it. I regretted that it failed at that time. But now, it's just you and me here, right? I'm stronger. You're okay with whatever happens, right?
What?
Transformed into a demon, Harry lunged at me. Caught off guard by this turn of events, I tried to retreat, but it was too late. Harry's hand reached for my neck. Just as I was trembling with fear, thinking there was no escape, the door to the hospital room burst open.
Hey, Harry! What are you doing?
It was my father-in-law's angry voice. Harry quickly released my neck. I coughed. I wiped the tears that had gathered at the corners of my eyes, and there were my father-in-law, mother-in-law, and Arthur. Mother-in-law and Arthur supported each other and looked at us with worried eyes.
Mom! Arthur, you came for me. I thought Dad might be here, so...
It seemed that after our call ended, Arthur went to my in-laws' house and explained everything. He thought I might be in danger. Sensing I might be in danger, my father-in-law became furious with Harry.
Harry, I heard you ran over Miranda. What were you thinking? It's fortunate she survived, but what if something had happened to her?
I intended to do it from the start, so there's nothing to say.
How could you?
My mother-in-law was speechless, realizing her son had committed a crime.
Stop joking. Explain yourself. Why did you do such a thing?
Under my father-in-law's intense glare, I felt overwhelmed, even though I was the one being protected. Arthur clung to my mother-in-law, scared. Harry seemed intimidated by his father, resembling a police officer, and his legs were trembling. Finally, he began to make excuses.
I had no choice. I fell for someone at work. She's the boss's daughter. The boss said he wouldn't approve of our marriage unless I had money. Before that, he threatened to fire me for dating without divorcing my wife.
Despite playing the victim, it was clear Harry was at fault. I listened in disbelief as he explained. His affair had started about 2 years ago. Indeed, Harry had become busier with work around that time. Was all his overtime and weekend work just an excuse to meet her? The thought filled me with rage.
Did you plan to run me over for the insurance money?
Harry remained silent. I knew immediately that it was an affirmation.
How could you? Do you even realize what you've done? I didn't want to do this. I told you, I had no choice.
No choice? After having an affair, you think a simple excuse will suffice? Have you ever considered the feelings of those you've betrayed? Not just me, but you've also betrayed Arthur, our son. You'll have to face the consequences. I confronted Harry with more assertiveness than ever, fueled by my anger.
What consequences are you talking about?
Of course, we're getting a divorce. And I'll be taking a hefty alimony from you and your mistress. What? Why is it all on me? You have some responsibility too for being cheated on. Incredibly, even at this point, Harry tried to shift the blame for his misdeeds onto me. My father-in-law was appalled and berated Harry.
Silence! Don't you dare come back to our house ever again. Apologize to Miranda right now. And go to the police!
He shouted with a demonic fury. Even Harry seemed to be affected by my father-in-law's wrathful words, wilting like a dried-up plant.
Please, I'm so sorry.
Harry groveled pathetically, his nose running, as he bowed his head and scurried out of the hospital room.
Miranda, are you all right? Yes, I'm fine, but if you all hadn't come, it could have been dangerous. Thank you. Mom.
Arthur threw himself into my arms. Even though he's usually so strong, he must have been really scared. He was sobbing on my chest.
Arthur, thank you. It was scary, wasn't it? From now on, let's live happily together, just you and me.
Okay. Arthur finally relaxed, and my in-laws also sighed in relief. After all that had happened, I was utterly exhausted. With help from my in-laws, I gathered my belongings and was discharged from the hospital that day. Since then, Harry, following my father-in-law's command, apparently turned himself into the police. I don't know what the verdict will be, but what Harry did is unforgivable. He will surely receive the punishment he deserves. His actions were exposed to his company, and naturally, it reached the ears of the CEO. The enraged CEO cut ties with the woman, his daughter, and fired Harry. It was a harsh outcome for Harry, but a just retribution for neglecting his family. I hope he reflects deeply while at the police station. Of course, I divorced Harry. I'll be taking $600,000 in alimony. Plus, I'll need child support for Arthur and alimony from your mistress as well.
Yes.
Having shrunk in defeat, Harry left our home. My in-laws also cut ties with him. It's sad that Arthur lost his father, but lately, he's been very clingy, saying, "As long as I have Mom, I'm fine." While feeling relieved by those words, I vowed in my heart never to let Arthur feel insecure again.
Arthur, isn't your birthday coming up? How about we go buy a violin?
Really?
Yay!
Since I had saved enough money from my part-time job and home-based work for the violin, I could finally promise to buy Arthur a violin. Arthur's face lit up with a broad smile. I want to protect this smile of Arthur's for the rest of my life.